second clock. All right, this meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee of St. Charles Parish School Board for Expulsion Appeals will come to order.
I will make a move that we go into executive committee.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to enter into executive
And
session.
just to note, we were going into executive session to discuss expulsions.
Let go. Oh my God. Let go. Oh my God. Let go.
And Ray second, or Ray,
Yes,
you
whatever,
second.
either way.
We are now live.
I don't see Mason. I feel like it's guy talking to us. We're live. We're not live. We're live.
I wish we could do something with them damn lights.
These. I wonder if there's any way we can flip them up. Just
Freaking something. Damn, they killed me.
You're right, me too. I'm gonna ask Ken. If there's any way we can get him.
Turn that down. Yeah, dim them down. Yeah, ask him.
Ken, is there any way that these licenses, they are destroying my eyes, and John and. You don't wanna be on the.
What'd you say?
And Art.
If the panel back here.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Thank y'all.
I can't get in this damn computer.
Yeah, this on.
I can't get into mine.
Home, I
Do
can't
you,
get in.
do you have your login?
It's not moving. It's
Let me
like it's
see.
dead, see?
I put the
Yeah.
password
keep-
in.
Committee to order, and at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gray, and we will discuss our property insurance renewal.
Good afternoon, everyone. I come to the table today with a smile because we come bearing good news for once in the insurance industry. I'm here with Kim Pleasure from Relation Insurance and Nolan Luke from Riverlands Insurance to discuss our property insurance renewal. They're going to go into details about the renewal specifically, but I just wanted to highlight that the board approved for us to complete the SOV work with Sailor's Company, and that SOV work proved to be very favorable in our property insurance renewal. So the investment has paid off. So I will turn it over to the members of our team to specifically discuss the renewal.
And Ms. Cray, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just real quick, as a reminder, when we originally went with Salus, right, that now the properties would be more accurate, right? And we expected to see the increase over a 3-year period, and the board decided to kind of break that up for 3 years. But when you look at the investment and the money you'll see this afternoon, that investment is already paid off in 2 years. So, Mr. Nolan.
I'll turn it over to Kim and I'll end it. But what's good about it, we had a 3-year plan. Oh, I'm sorry. We had a 3-year plan, but with the favorable renewals we was having, it allowed us to get to closer to our point faster. Because we had a breakout, what we're going to do every year. This year, we could increase it by 104 million, and it's going to allow us to only have to increase it next year by 45 million to get to where the report says we need to get. So it was good. You get to where we need to get quicker.
And the underwriters were thankful that we were actually presenting information that was backed by a company to show that our values are actually what they say they are. So that allowed them to be more favorable in our renewal. Turn it over to you.
So we are in the I'm loud. Do I need the microphone? Oh, okay.
Being recorded, yep.
So we are in the second year of the 3-year plan that we agreed on. And as Nolan was saying, we picked up 104 million we added to the TIV, the total insured value this year. And with that increase, which was an increase of 19% in the total insured value.
Yeah, the property went to like 541 and we got it to 645, just kind of round those numbers.
Mr. Nolan, if you don't mind making sure your microphone's on when you talk, thank you.
It was 541, and with the 19% increase in the property, we got it to 645.
Yes.
Right, so it had a 19% increase in the property.
In the total insured value increase. But we were able to get the rate down 31%. So we are seeing a $300,000 reduction in premium this year at renewal.
So we have a 300 deduction premium in renewal, but we also increased the property 104 million. So we had a double success story. We got it up 104 plus decreased the premium by 300,000.
And again, we have your designated claim adjuster, Boris Lonkerovic. So even though you have multiple carriers on this placement, you're only dealing with one person. And he is your point of contact.
And the success story on that part of them, you know, putting just one claims adjuster, Darrenisha called the team, had a report that we had a claim that most of y'all know or do know we had a claim last week. And I think within 2.5 hours, they was at the school. So we got the report by, 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning when Darrenisha called. By like 10:30, they were already there.
This was from water at Luling Elementary School. We experienced a water leak from an air condition, I believe, Miss Gray, yeah, one of the lines, so it flooded two of the rooms.
So this is the success story, but I have to just say one thing. First of all, we appreciate the business, right? But I also got to give special thanks to Darrenisha, Kim, and Rick, because the first proposal that came in, the company don't want to give you all what they can give you. Right? They want to give you, the market softened a little bit, they want to give you 20%. And when that came down, you know, Rick and Kim felt like it was a 20% rate increase. They went to war, they fight it every day. They went from 20%, got it down to 31%. And I really think 31% is not the end. I think we better get another point or two. So we're still working like we always do to the last minute. But you know, I got an incredible team with Rick and Kim. They fight, and discount means a lot to us. And but I want to thank you personally, and what you and Rick did. They lowered this thing as much as they can, and I don't think we finish. I think we get another point or so.
Thank you.
And also to thank the board and the physical plant department for their investments with the continuous improvement and maintenance of our buildings. So that's something else that is utilized in the property insurance renewals to let the underwriters know that we continue to maintain our buildings, that we have come back strong since our large claim from Hurricane Ida, and that we continue to do our improvement programs to our roofs, to our air conditioning, and all the different aspects to maintain our buildings. So the total premium for this plan year will be 3.9 million, as you can see in Assembly. Are there any questions about this item?
That's it?
One more.
Okay.
So we just have one more item, and that's going to be our auto physical damage renewal. This is the insurance policy that we have on all of our vehicles when they're not moving and they're parked on site at both East Bank and West Bank Yard for our buses and our white fleet. As you can recall, we started to have this coverage after Hurricane Ida. Because if there are acts of God or anything that happens while the buses are not in motion, there is not coverage on the liability policy. So we've picked up these auto physical damage policies. Now, this does not cover the buses or vehicles that are older and the insured value will not be useful when using this policy. So as in the attachment you'll see in the spreadsheet, it breaks down on certain columns to show you which vehicles will be covered and which vehicles are not covered. So I'll turn it over to Kim and Nolan to see if they have anything else to add.
No, the insured values did not change. It stayed 2,911,000, and the premium increased by 1.9%. There was really nothing really to do on that one. It was a pretty flat renewal and straightforward.
This question was asked in executive during our agenda review, which is, Louisiana has made some policy changes relative to insurance, and why was it not reflective? Because some of what has been communicated, I guess, in the news is that there would be some lower rates. Does that apply to us, not apply? Do y'all have anything to respond from that standpoint based on the laws that were changed and put into?
I'm not sure about personal liability. I know that there is supposed to be a rate decrease in 2027. I've heard that too. But on the commercial, I have not heard that. And so, no, I can say no to that.
And I'll also respond to say a lot of that movement that's been made is on the personal auto side and not on the commercial side, because commercial usually goes through wholesale brokers. It's a little bit of a different process on the placement for commercial properties than personal property.
Thank you.
One other thing that's not even part of this agenda is that the renewal for the flood is coming up in September. I'm actually got asked to be on the board for the parish to do a fight for flood rates and all the lawsuits coming. So if y'all have an insurance committee that's coming up in the next month, 2 months before the renewal, and y'all want to invite me, I can kind of just give y'all update of everything the parish is doing to try to keep our renewals done. So I'm on the board now. I get a little bit more insight. So if something comes up before September and we want to know what's going on, just give me a call and we'll go do lunch or whatever, but I'll give you an update of what's going on. Okay?
I'm sorry, I had one question. Does this policy cover buses that are parked in places other than the East Bank or West Bank holding facility, for lack of a better term?
That I'm going to have to look into. Yeah, I'm going to say yes, because it is the bus that's insured, not where it's located. But I will confirm that for you. That's a great question, and I will confirm it. But I'm going to say yes.
We'll be sure to follow up with that.
Yeah, I will follow up with you on that.
Bus transport students to Morgan City today for a band competition, and then somebody hits the bus in the parking lot.
Yes.
That would be one
Yes.
example, yep.
My first thought was the bus drivers who have, some of them have park outs, so some park their vehicles at their homes versus parking them on the yard.
Oh, okay, so it still would be covered wherever they're parked. That's all.
Yeah, is that an act of God? Correct? Act of
Yes,
God,
ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
So I do know the answer to the park outs. I don't know about the other scenarios, but the park outs is covered. Yes, sir.
Any more
Other questions?
If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Oh, second, sorry, second.
We stand adjourned.
Still excited about good news.
Again, we appreciate the business. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to Personnel and Policy Committee. We have 2 items on the agenda. The first item is Oshna Digital Medicine Contract Renewal. Mrs. Brown.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Good evening, everyone. So we have presented the information regarding the Oshna Digital Medicine comparison. We had our representative here at one of our last meetings, and so the next step is to renew the contract. So you'll see that the amount is for $250,000, and that is for 2 contract years. So I took the average of the highest year just to kind of, for budgeting purposes, and that is based on the participation. It's also based on the participation of if they're in one program or two programs, if they're in the dual program or one. So it does fluctuate, but I tried to take the highest average so we can budget appropriately for this if the contract is approved tonight, on Wednesday, per the board, so.
Ms. Brown, from what I remember of the presentation, I think it was last month, the
Yes,
lady,
sir. I
lady
think
from
it was.
Oshner, we had something like 122 people. Does that sound correct?
It fluctuates. The highest number, I think we're around 200, closer to 200 employees in the program, but it fluctuates based on
Okay.
them coming off or coming back on.
What I wanted to know was, what's the cost per person?
So it's 55 if they do one program, and it's 75 if they do two programs. So,
That much dollars per month?
yes, sir.
And that's, let's say if it's $55, that would be $610 a year?
I haven't done the math on it, but maybe, yes, yes,
Somewhere around that, 75, it'll be a little bit more.
correct.
Okay, and we have, you said 200 people?
Approximately. That was our highest number.
Okay, do people ever come off this program?
Yes, sir, they do.
What allows them to come off?
They can take themselves off, or if they have a lack of participation, then they are taken off. It just depends on, and they may feel like they're under control, and so they take themselves off of the program, or they're just not engaged, they take themselves off. So it just depends.
Okay.
But we will exit the employee from the program if there is a lack of participation over a period of days.
And this is supplemental insurance, for lack of a better word.
So it's not necessarily insurance, but it is a program to support the wellness of the employees to manage it, and there is a cost savings to it per employee. So we have experienced, I want to say, over the past 3 years, $389,000 a year. It's just a cost savings of medical spend on average each year.
National average or St. Charles Parish average?
Well, it is a national study that they do to determine the expenditure per person that's enrolled in these programs. And so that data is based on our number of employees enrolled in the program, but based on the national average of the
Times
study.
The national average.
Yes, sir.
So it's
That is
not
correct.
really, it's not, you couldn't go to court with that number because it's not our people.
It's not an exact data based on our medical spend.
And we have a program already called Ongoing. Does that ring a bell?
Condition care?
It's,
condition care, UMR's ongoing condition care. This was gonna be my question too. Are these not doing the same things? The things we're already paying for UMR to have? The ongoing condition care program provides personal one-on-one support for members with hypertension, diabetes, all these things. Is this not the same thing?
So UMR does have a similar program to digital medicine. However, the capabilities and the outcomes of that program provided by Oshner and UMR are completely different. The support that's provided by Oshner Digital Medicine, the constant contact that they have with the members that's enrolled in the program, the results that are being showed between their medical status being changed from the start of the program to where they are now. UMR's program is not that robust as the digital medicine program. It's very different.
but we already have that in place and it only costs $2 or $3.
So that program that we have right now, it's already included in our medical fee.
Right.
However, it's not as robust as the Oshner Digital Medicine program. The Oshner program is much better is a much better offering.
People in it.
Yes, ma'am.
It's this Oshner Digital Medicine, in my opinion, is redundant and it's much more costly than something we already have, something very similar that we already have.
Could I piggyback just real quick on a question? Mr. Suffren, you had brought up an issue when we went through this. Did you get that resolved in a way that you're satisfied with?
Yes, I had a follow-up discussion with Ms., I'm drawing a blank on her name. Are you too? The Oshner representative. I had a follow-up discussion the next day or so, and I'm satisfied that they're going to try to, I guess, resolve the concerns that I had expressed. So that only time will tell if that's something that can be resolved going forward.
And Mr. Smith, if I recall correctly, you had a few questions and concerns as well. Were you satisfied with the responses you received?
Mr. Cody, I am a proponent of digital medicine. I believe strongly in digital medicine program. I believe that the benefits that it offers to our employees is benefits that not only result in cost savings to the board as it relates to our health program, but to the individual as an individual, because it allows the individual to keep track of where they are in terms of dreaded diseases such as heart conditions, diabetes, and so forth, and the immediate feedback that you get, in addition to the fact that the individual is monitored by Oshner through the program, and whenever there's an alert, you get a call from Oshner telling you that we saw that your blood pressure is at an unsafe level, get to an emergency room now. All kinds of benefits to the individual as well as cost savings to us in terms of reducing cost of. There is no comparison between the other program and the digital medicine program. No, I have not used it, but I'm very familiar with it.
With the UMR's program?
Yes, because I had the option of choosing which one I want.
Program, just to give you highlights, one of the biggest differences between the digital medicine program and the UMR program is the Epic integration ability.
Okay.
So your readings and the information that Mr. Smith talks about automatically goes into Epic. So your doctors from Oshner and LCMC are able to see the data that feeds in from those readers in real time. And whenever the nurses or someone makes a recommendation, your own physician is able to see those notes and they can say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I don't agree with that, and they can tailor what they see. On the UMR side, that information that comes through on those readers do not have the capability to embed with Epic. So it's separate information that you would have to bring to your doctor when you go into a visit to say, here are my readings. It's not in real time that can feed to your doctor. So while a nurse will be looking at the information, it's not going directly to your physician.
My only request about this, because I remember when they were talking about it, and I remember them saying that it was $100,000 a year for this, but it is embedded into our costs already. So we are paying, even if it's embedded, it's still a cost that we're paying. How do we just get them to remove this? Is that even an option? Just remove this service because this other one is better? You had 225 people that unable to be reached. Like they're not interested in this program. I have no problem supporting this. I see the value in it. I know the value in it, but we're paying $100,000 for a copycat version that no one's using. Do we negotiate that the next time that we have negotiations for a contract to say, completely remove that option?
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to start to bring the data from those programs to make recommendations. So when we come back to say how some of those programs are not performing well. So when we initially did our contract with UMR, USI negotiated on our behalf and they took recommendations from UMR on programs that UMR believe could be beneficial to us.
Okay.
Now that we've been under this contract and we have data, we can say these
want that.
programs are not beneficial to us. What other programs are available to us, or we don't have to take programs at all. It's just something that USI negotiated to be within a part of our medical fee, which is the fixed cost that we pay per month.
Okay.
Does a UMR program come with the devices? Similar?
The devices come as a separate charge. So the program is embedded in our medical fee, and then for the devices, it comes through DME, so we pay.
So there's an additional charge for the devices in addition to the $100,000+ that we already pay for the program?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But
And
you
that information doesn't go directly to your doctor. You have to bring that data with you to your visits, or you have to send it to your doctor. It's not like the digital medicine program, which
Where the
has
readings
Epic.
are uploaded,
It has
yeah.
Epic capabilities. So whether you're with a national doctor or you're in the LCMC network, those doctors are able to get that information in real time. And while I'm not able to share PII, I can tell you for a fact, and we're trying to figure out how we can scrub that data to provide it to Ms. Brown. I can tell you for a fact that the readings of employees who've been involved in the program from the start to where they are now is completely different.
Amazing.
The way I look at this, we're already providing some of this with the ongoing program. This is a luxury option. The digital option program. There's no proof whatsoever that we saving money by providing this. And what's going to happen when other medical issues like, let's say, mental health or alcoholism or just anything, when they decide they want to upgrade the option?
Well, I mean, based on the information, thank you, Mr. Alexander, for your question. Based on the information that we have, just as Ms. Gray has stated, that they're trying to scrub that data to give us those, the information. Based on the data and the employees that are controlled, I have to believe that when they are in a controlled state with their blood pressure and with their diabetes, that has to result in, I understand your point, but it has to result in a savings, because that means that's less trips to the emergency room, or, for blood glucose levels that may be super high or super low. Same thing for blood pressure. But if other programs, I guess, were offered in the future for some of the programs that you just suggested, I think that would have to be reviewed, just as these programs have been reviewed and evaluated, and we would present that to the board and operate at the board's
Gonna cost us
pleasure.
more money. In the last couple of months, we've been trying to save money.
I really see it as a work in progress. It's not going to happen overnight, but I do think it's a proactive step to try to improve the health profile of our employees.
We already have that in place with our health insurance. If people would just practice healthy living, they would be they wouldn't need all this extra help.
Well, we can't decide that today.
I think we're debating,
Okay.
two different things. I think that the purpose of this program that we got involved with, the digital medicine program, the reason for that was because we wanted to figure out ways that we could reduce our insurance costs by having some wellness measures in place. And we opted to do this. It is not an insurance program that people who are involved in the program get additional insurance benefits, and it costs more for insurance. You are paying separate from insurance. This has nothing to do with the premium that we pay for insurance. You pay for this because you want to reap the benefit of having your employees at work, fewer days that they lose for illness and so forth. And I believe that the cost of the program is offset by the benefits of the program that we get. And some of those benefits include days lost because of illness and all those kind of things. In addition to that, I think during the presentation last month, the people from ASHA was here. They presented a study in which a certain number of people were involved in the study. Some of them were involved in the program and some were not. And the evidence showed that those people who were involved in the program received certain benefits from their involvement that the other group did not receive. So as far as proof of effectiveness of the program, I think it was there. It was presented clearly, and all of the national data that we have show that people who are involved in various wellness experiences maintain their health in a much better and efficient way than those who don't.
I just would like, I'm more in line, I think, with Mr. Alexander on this. I mean, you got to look, you got 1/8 of the board, what is that? I've got to believe that that number is extrapolated out, that there are issues with this program. Mr. Suffren was fortunate enough to have a one-on-one conversation because he was with the representative. I don't like that it's 2 years. Can we get that down to 1 year? And can we get a stipulation that we need to have some doctor feedback, the same kind of type of feedback that Mr. Suffren brought up? Because I've got to believe there's more people out there. I see the benefits potentially with this, but I think that we have to be more diligent on just what we're accepting. And I can't accept a 2-year deal without some added, me personally, without some added feedback from doctors on this. So I'd like to cut it to 1 year and get some additional data coming from doctors in order for me to approve this.
Didn't we discuss this recently where a presentation was made and it showed the comparison of what we paid and what was the savings that we got from this?
That was last month.
That was
the lady from.
It's all
Austin.
extrapolated data, though.
And I asked her, she said it's not costing us anything. And I asked her, I said, what do you mean it's not costing us anything? And
I'm with you
she
on
was
that,
saying something about for what we pay and what we save, it's cost neutral, but she couldn't tell us what we were paying.
Yeah, and I'm not
what we were saving. She would tell us it's costing us.
I'm not doubting that. I agree with you on that.
Didn't have any information on what it's actually saving us. No proof.
I believe that it possibly could be saving us. I thought the data was extrapolated, but I was more uncomfortable with the experience that Mr. Suffren had.
But
That's what I was more
Mr.
uncomfortable with.
Cody, we provide some of this already in our health program. This is a option specifically for hypertension patient and diabetic patient. What are we going to provide for everybody else when they said, hey, y'all doing this for diabetics, I'm overweight. What you going to do for me?
So even though this is part of the personnel committee, even though this, one of the things we did as the insurance committee is we asked, is there something out there that we can use or tools out there to help lower our costs? And this was a program that was brought to us, and we said, let's look at it. And when we first enrolled, it was much cheaper than it was now, okay? The price is kind of going up, just like, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not quite sure they've had a rate increase.
Or maybe it was because we had less people participate.
We had less people.
Yes, sir. Less.
That's what, but anyway.
Might be up a little bit
So
too.
we as a board asked for tools out there to help lower our insurance rate. And this was brought in, and, it's not X equals Y, whatever. It's just a thought that if people are participating in this, there are going to be less times that they're going to be going to the emergency room, and your insurance rate should come. It's not visual. You can see it. It's just one of these things that's a tool to try to lower that. So, I mean, it's the board's pleasure, but I mean, I see it as a benefit to our insurance, but I mean, it does come with a cost.
And Ms. Alexander, to answer your question, we do have programs available for employees who have other diagnoses. That is our complex condition care program, and it's a variety of diagnoses that are eligible for that program. However, enrollment is low
And
because
do we pay extra?
it's a part of the negotiated medical fee.
Already
So
included,
it's
just like we have
so
this
to your-
included already.
Well, but
This is redundant.
what she said about this, well, I pulled it up and I already closed it, but that there's still extra costs added to what they have. So if we're saying it's $55 for the whole thing, what they do start to finish, but it isn't that because you're having to separately pay for every tool that you need to be able to do it. You're having to bring it to your doctor. It isn't conducive. It's probably not going to be used. No one's using it. The 245 people wouldn't even return their phone call because it's too many steps to be able to do it to get the
But
care.
we
I hear what you're saying.
charge.
I think that at this point, we've just kind of all have a little bit different opinions.
If the board wants to throw away some more money.
This
have
isn't
at it.
throwing away. This is investing in our
It's
employees' health.
200, there's no proof that it's paying. There's no proof.
But there's participants, and then the
No, that's
participants are
spec-
saying that it is having a significant
Well, yeah,
effect on them.
if a person needs a ride and you offer to call Uber or you offer to buy them a Cadillac, what are they gonna choose?
I don't know that these compare, but okay.
To Mr. Cody's point, I mean, I had a good conversation with the Oshner representative, but my experience with the discrepancies in the readings, that experience has continued, and it hasn't been resolved. So to your point, I just wanted to pass that along.
That's my concern.
Okay, what's the pleasure of this committee?
Can I ask one more question? It's not related to this. The 100,000, is that part of the credit that we get from UMR, or what do we use that for?
So this is separate. So what Mr. Babin stated is that the medical fee was negotiated as a whole. He threw out a ballpark number to say that he's not able to give an exact figure of what each program would cost, but if he had to ballpark it, it would be around that amount if we had it separate versus it being embedded in the medical fee. So we pay a set fee for the fixed costs, and those programs are embedded within that. But he gave a ballpark number of what the program could cost if we didn't have it negotiated in our fee at the beginning of the contract.
Okay, so what do we use the $100,000 credit, or I don't know, credit's the right word, I don't know, for then?
So the
Or maybe
wellness
you don't have to
credit
answer.
is separate from, the wellness is separate from the programming that's included in the medical fee. So we have two different buckets that kind of run side by side. So we have those care programs that were presented at the Risk Management and Insurance Committee. Those are all embedded within our medical fee. The wellness programs is separate, and there's a credit that was provided that one of the credits was to go towards wellness programs, and that's the programs that Ms. Brown is in charge of. But that's something that's completely different.
Maybe that's what I'm referring to. I don't know. I just remember $100,000.
Is it all of the care programs together that would fall into that lump, or is it just that one specific was going to be about 100,000?
He was stating if we were to purchase separate programs, that would be around the cost to, as a ballpark to say of how many people were enrolled in that Oshner program, but they didn't have exact numbers because we didn't negotiate it separately. It was negotiated as a package for all the programs, all of our fixed costs of them being our TPA.
So for the sake of the meeting, is this something that we're remanding back to administration to address some of those issues? Is that what you're asking for?
I have zero qualms with being a no vote to a passing agenda item.
Say that again?
So I think, Ms. Chair, did you want to remand it now from this committee meeting
That's what I'm asking.
to administration?
What's the pleasure of the committee? The committee can make that decision, whether to
I'm not on this committee.
table this for the time being or to move it to Wednesday night. And we only
Personnel.
have two
It's not even
committee
insurance.
We only have two committee people here, Ms. Weber and myself.
I feel personally that we had a lot of discussion at board retreat in regards to this. And at that point, we were all, it appeared to me, and I can remember, favorable of continuing to do this because from our thinking, these two things, the blood pressure and the diabetes, is two of our highest cost medical issues. And this seems to be something that is working. I understand we have things in our UMR, but we're not getting the response like we are with this. I know we talked in length. I thought we requested you to move forward. You're back here with the contract. I just thought we were gonna be presenting the contract information and if we're gonna vote on it or not. I have no problem moving forward because I do think it's beneficial to our employees. That's me.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
that's just one vote. And it's gonna be
Mr.
tabled.
Smith is the other member. Are we going to wait? Did you want to wait for Mr. Smith?
Oh,
No.
no,
It is currently,
but he's not here.
it is currently on the agenda for Wednesday night. So I would need specific direction to remove that from the agenda for Wednesday night, if that is the pleasure of the committee.
Well, as a,
When does the contract expire?
We have to
I
renew.
got one thumbs up from Ms. Weber,
Yeah,
but
I'm in
that's not the
agreement.
majority.
No, I'm saying, is it to table it?
To table it and, and take it up at the, the next board retreat.
In favor of moving forward with the contract for Wednesday night, but I am only one person here.
Oh, it expires
on
in
the
a week?
committee.
Just to answer your question, Mr. Oakland, it expires in March. So we do have to,
Yeah.
we had brought this at the previous board retreat and then came back with a follow-up presentation
we
with
had
our representative. So it's been a three-step process. If, if we want to remand it back, I will have to just do some next steps to determine if we're continuing the program for our employees and just communicate the information that needs to be communicated.
So,
to our
Ms. Brown, do you have, when does the contract end?
the end of March.
Again, I think I would feel more comfortable on a one-year agreement with those stipulations. I would be in favor. I'm not discounting, I think, the efficacy of this, but I do think it's something we've got to dig into a little bit more and put Oshner's feet to the fire a little
Well,
bit.
could we possibly ask to renew on a month-to-month till we can go further discussion at the board retreat in the summer? You know, say, hey, look, we need more time. Let's go month to month, and then, and whenever the board retreat occurs, we could have further discussion and sign a longer-term contract.
Up with that?
Good. That brings us to.
But this
personnel
agenda item
items.
is still on. I think, I still need clear direction on whether or not this,
From Wednesday's agenda.
Yeah, but
in doing so, but however, if she's able to get that information and renew it on a basis, that still needs to be brought back to the board to change the contract.
that's what
So
I
it
think
still
he's
needs to
saying.
be an agenda item.
I think you need to leave it on the,
At this point, I look at it as something we don't want.
well, I think you leave it on the agenda and then you can make somebody make the motion. Can you talk to them tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Maybe a one-month contract
Haven't answered, I'm
and
not putting you on the
discuss at
spot.
the April 1
Do that, I'm just
retreat,
that-
and then put it on the agenda for the April board meeting?
We need to have it for Wednesday night, we're gonna make the modifications. We need some direction for Wednesday, am I
At
correct?
this point, it's not gonna be, it's not gonna be discussed Wednesday night.
Yeah, till tomorrow at 6:30. I think you still need to.
Still need a 1 month, to approve a 1 month contract, right?
Yeah.
There's the other member of the insurance committee, Mr. Smith is here now. Personnel, I'm sorry, personnel, sorry. I'm seeing Ms. Gray here.
And I will do my best to get an answer from Oshner tomorrow in hopes that I can provide some clarity ASAP.
Okay, you're a deciding factor. You're a deciding factor.
We're,
About the digital matters.
we're trying to decide whether to postpone this until the, until the summer, the next retreat,
April 1st.
because we want more information on this contract.
We're trying to decide whether to postpone it or what's the other option.
The other option would be to take it up Wednesday night.
But I think just to add to that,
Modification.
is if it ends, so the contract ends March,
End of March.
End of March.
something needs to be done, whether it's a month to month whether it's a year, whatever it does,
But let's vote it up or vote it down Wednesday night. We don't need to be going in through all this kind of crap.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's lock and load.
Well, we have one vote to move it forward. Well, no, we have two votes to move it forward.
Mr. Smith
Okay,
and I on the committee.
all right. Next item, personnel items.
Administration will still look at the year-to-year contract, you know, from that standpoint, just because that was requested as
100%.
information. Thank you.
Next item.
Personnel.
All right, so the personnel notes are attached. This is the time of year where we provide staffing updates to the board. And just so you all know, you have a report attached there. This does change daily. We've had a few, retirements even today. So each month you will see these updates coming. But as of the information that we have, there are 22 resignations and retirements. That is at the bottom right-hand box that I'm looking at. Now, if you start from the top, you can just see our resignations and retirements of 17, and you can look at our SPED, which is 2, and then in the middle column where I have the highlighted section, that lists out our total number of retirements, broken down by high schools, middle schools, elementary, and then in our other category, you see those numbers reflected there. So we are, again, working very hard on staffing and trying to calculate our methodologies in each school building and each department. So that process is ongoing, but this will just give you an idea of where we stand right now with resignations and retirements.
We got a glitch with the system. We're not able to.
Oh, I am so sorry. Okay.
Some of us aren't, some of them. Yeah, we lost the internet, yeah. And clipped us off.
Ms. Brown, are we fully staffed
Thanks.
district-wise now, or we?
We have a couple of vacancies as far as like current vacancies. These resignations and retirements are really for our May 22nd, where people are, scheduling. Each year we send out in February our intent of whether or not they plan to stay with us for next year so we can staff appropriately, or do they plan to retire or resign? And so that's what this number is truly reflecting and capturing, are those retirements and resignations. But we do have openings in some of our different departments and in our school buildings.
How many temporary teachers do we have hired right now?
Can you be more specific?
That people who are not qualified fill in a certified
Oh,
position.
uncertified. I want to give you exact data. I think it is approximately 4 to 5, but I would like to follow up with that. We have very low uncertified numbers in our district as far as teachers that are working on certification, and I'm happy to bring that information back and provide that to the superintendent so we can communicate that to you all. We have a very good rate of certified teachers. So as far as temporary, we're working with that list. Anybody that's uncertified right now will have until April 30th to become certified, and then we have to go through our process, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? I'm sorry?
Nothing, sorry.
Okay, if there are no other questions, the Personnel and Policy Committee meeting is adjourned.
I second it.
Right? Oh. Am I good to call, we're going to call the Capital Improvements Committee to order. Welcome Mr. Johnny Rome, Mr. Dustin Vanette, and Kate Rogers on the ones and twos.
Good evening. I'm really just here for window dressing, and Mr. Vanette, Mr. Rogers is going to lead the charge. Actually, I have some facility updates on the backside, but we're going to start with the Safe Schools update. Mr. Vanette?
Video.
Thank y'all. So I'm gonna be kind of working both this and on my computer with some of the notes as well. All right. see if we can get them synced. So the first thing we're going to start off with is our Safe Schools audit. We conducted our yearly Safe Schools audit. As you can see on the first slide, there were 5 schools that were audited this year, and it is our elementary cycle. You can see the 5 schools that were listed, and the last time that these, sorry, let me get closer. The last time that these schools were audited was in fall of 2022. The next year, we will go back to our secondary schools and audit the secondary schools. Our audit team consists of multiple members of the St. Charles School District, as well as our Safe Schools chairs, custodians, risk managers, as well as maintenance, and also outside entities such as the Sheriff's Office, Fire Department, EMS, industry, and a lot of the people that are selected are also parents of students that are within our school district. The audit process has multi steps. We have our walkthrough audits, which is that when we're auditing actual physical things such as buildings and processes, as well as we have our interviews where we have an outside contractor comes in and interviews important people within the school system, such as the teachers, students, the principals, custodians, all the people that have the different functions within that school's day-to-day basis. So this year, we actually implemented the full scale of our electronic audit. Last year, we did a pilot of it where it was just myself and the team that I did the walkthrough. We piloted the electronic piece of it. This year, all teams were issued an iPad that they went around and were able to electronically use it. That helped tremendously in us compiling all of the data correctly, as well as it gives the auditors the opportunity to take pictures of any unsatisfactory items. So when we're reviewing that with the administration at the school, they can see the exact item that they're talking about, and they can see what it looked like. So of the elementary school items, there's 121 items that are assessed. Of the 121 items, there were 37 items that were rated unsatisfactory in one or more of the schools. Just for some notes, back in 2022, there was 49 that were rated unsatisfactory in one or more schools. There was 9 items that were rated unsatisfactory in 4 or more schools. In 2022, that was 11. As well as then there was 3 items that were rated unsatisfactory in all 5 schools that were audited. The last time that those 5 schools were audited, there was 8. So there has been improvement on the items that were listed as unsatisfactory. So we're going to go over a couple of the items that were listed in 4 or more schools, as well as the 5 or more schools. So the 4 schools or more that items were listed, it was fences are in good repair. That could be anything from a gate to latches on the gate, sidewalks, door hardware. So when we talk about door hardware, we have a lot of students and staff that are going in and out of our doors. So these are items that are on typically on all of our audits because of the amount of people that are going in and out of doors, as well as if you look at some of the parking spaces. By the time that 4-year rolls around is about the time that our parking lots need to be restriped and such. As well as some signs on buildings. That was some of the items that were brought up by our first responders. And when we are very good about putting the building letters on the front of our buildings for identification purposes. The first responders had recommended that we look into putting letters on other sides of the building. So if they do have to approach for whether it's a fire emergency or anything else, they can identify those buildings, not having to go directly to the front of the building to see. So 3 of the items that were listed in all 5 schools, we typically see these in the first 2 items. The interior walls and fixtures are well protected and durable, as well as the exterior walls. They have students that are going in and out, kind of the same thing as the door hardware, that paint will peel, paint will be scratched, and those are just simple things that we see on all of our audits. The other item, if that was in all 5 schools, was that our elementary play areas and surface areas are in good condition. I don't want you to think that our play areas are not in good condition or unsafe. This could be something as simple as there is grass growing through the mulch in a couple of spots. They can be rated unsatisfactory at that point. And even though our play areas are audited every 4 years, our play areas before the start of the school year get audited by our insurance company comes in, and we have an outside consultant that comes in and audits and inspects all of our play areas to make sure they're safe before the start of the school year.
I have 2 questions before
Yes,
you move
ma'am.
on. When you say graffiti, I'm thinking writing, but you talked about chip paint. Is it graffiti or is it just chip paint?
It can be anything. It can be anything
So
from
graffiti
graffiti.
can be,
Well, it can be free from graffiti as
Okay.
well as chip paint. The actual item on the audit is very lengthy of all the different options. I tried to sum it up for y'all and condense it, but it can be anything from chipped paint to faded as well as graffiti.
my next question, when it says elementary school play areas or fence, hard surfaces are used for PE classes or in good condition, is underneath the unsat area. And you said it could be simple as grass, whatever. Whose responsibility is that for the outside part of the areas to make sure that this is not happening, that we're spraying for the weeds and whatever? Because I just feel like, when I'm walking around, our elementary school areas always look good, so I'm not understanding, like, who's supposed to be keeping up with those pieces of grass that are in the cement or in the mulch or whatever? Is that the custodian at the school, the outside custodian?
Maybe I can speak to that from the
Okay.
facilities perspective. In many cases, it's all of the above, because
Okay.
at many sites, we have our custodial, we have contract custodial and maintenance. For each site, there is a detailed map that shows the area each person is responsible for. Can't say it's always perfect, because when you got multiple people responsible, sometimes that communication piece is, but maintenance repeatedly goes over that agreement with the schools, make sure that everybody's aware of what's their responsibility. Same with contract custodial. And our maintenance managers and administrator of maintenance actually meet with each school, whether it be the principal or an administrator, once a week. They actually send in reporting to us. They have a checklist, playgrounds of, or one of which. So there are many fail-safes to kind of make sure that it's done in accordance with what we expect. But I believe, as Mr. Vanette said, when you come to the audit, you've got outside people in that, one piece of paper on a playground would rate that unsatisfactory. Obviously the standard is 100% all the time, but I think that's more what you're seeing. They didn't see anything that I can recall, and he can, debate or vouch for that. I don't think we saw anything that was unsafe or not up to standard. It was just small little tweaks, like maybe a piece of grass, maybe a piece of trash left out, and things of that
And
nature.
that's what I'm saying, because, as I go around, I make sure I walk in those areas, and I'm just like surprised that's on there, because our grounds are kept, very pristine as I'm going. Do we have grass in some areas? Yeah, just like anybody in their own yard. So I'm just wondering, like how detailed are they looking for that blade of grass or that little tiny piece of paper,
Yes, ma'am. So when they are walking through it, that's the exact things that they're being very strict on these things, because we want it to be, and we want to improve. We can always improve. So they're being very strict in there. And like Mr. Rome had mentioned, that if it is one blade of grass that is coming through and they happen to walk through that day, it's going to be rated as unsatisfactory.
Yeah, and then we need to make sure we tell everybody that you can't have that one blade of grass showing.
And just one,
At any time.
and just one other piece of information, because I've done the audits in the past, as Mr. Rogers has, and then now it's Mr. Vanette's baby, is that these first responders are very into it, which is good, because they're taking that outside perspective, but they take things very literally. So what we've always emphasized, and I know they continue to, is we look at severity and frequency.
Right.
So, is it showing up over and over? Then we got a problem. Is it a severe thing as opposed to a piece of grass? Then and we follow up with those immediately. But, the audit is the audit. So, we report it as it's given to us, and then we look deeper into it to see if there's a trend or if there's a bigger issue.
Yeah, I like what you said, the trend, if it's something that keeps coming up. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So the next slide is our district summary. What that is we meet as a audit team and we do a compression planning where we bring all of the unsatisfactory items and the audit team compression plans and picks some of the most important ones that they feel are the most important that we should address. Those items are listed as the doors and gates are in good repair and secured. Interior and exterior walls are durable and well protected. The parking spaces, as we spoke about earlier, classroom doors being secured, as well as the bus parking lots being restricted. And I can speak on that one. That could be something as the fire lane was restricted during a take-in. You know, so you talk about, you know, I'll mention one of our elementary schools uses that lane as their morning take-in. Well, when the fire department audit team goes there and they see that, they're gonna mark that down because like Mr. Rome had mentioned, they're very literal when it comes to this audit. And but these are all things that we bring to the table and we discuss it as a audit team and try to see if we can come up with some better practices that are from those results. And then the last item was that all district state required training is completed in a timely manner. Here's a breakdown of the items that were rated as unsatisfactory of who was responsible for these items. 11 of them were school, 5 was the maintenance department, 19 of the items was a combination of the school, maintenance, and district. And we like to use the example of the light being burnt out in a school. So if a light is burnt out in a school, the first responsibility is the school. The custodian will go and change the light bulb. If the light is still out after changing the light bulb, then they will put a work order in for maintenance to repair that light. Maybe the ballast is bad. Now, if maintenance goes in to repair the ballast and they notice that there's multiple lights that are out and it's a consistent thing, then they will upgrade that to a district project and the district may replace all the lights in that wing of that area. And then 2 of the items were child nutrition and transportation. For the visual learners, here is a here's a graph of the percentage. Yes. And just so as you're looking at the pie chart, I will give you some perspective in 2022. It was the other responsibility was 8%. Maintenance's responsibility was 17%. The shared responsibility between school maintenance and district was 28%. And the school responsibility was 47%. So our next steps from here is we met as our audit team, we made the recommendations. We meet with our district administration, the superintendent, our elementary school representatives, as well as Mr. Rome and Mr. Rogers, and we present our findings district-wide to them. The next step is we will meet with the individual schools and go over our findings with that individual school and come up with plans of action of how we can address these unsatisfactory items. All of these plans of actions are submitted to our office and we review and follow up with them to make sure that they are completed. So Smart Pass, we're moving out of the audit. Now these are some of the items that we have implemented since the last time that we spoke last spring. So Smart Pass is an electronic hall pass, and with that electronic hall pass, it allows our secondary school students to ask for their hall pass, and they electronically put it in their Chromebook, and it allows the school administration as well as that teacher to be able to monitor how long the student's out, as well as if they returned. It allows the school administration to put in passes restrictions. So if me and Mr. Rome had an altercation earlier in the school year, it wouldn't allow me to have a pass accepted if Mr. Rome is already out. So it helps prevent some of these conflicts as well during unsupervised times.
Y'all wouldn't be in school if y'all.
So, and as you can see on the slide, to date, we've had over 148,000 passes that have been created. And it also allows the teacher and the administration to share that with a parent that if a student is struggling in a certain subject, that they can pull it up and say, okay, well, he's struggling in math. It may be because this is how many passes and how much time of instruction time he has missed.
He leaves out of math every single day. The other benefit to this, because I was talking to JB Martin's administration the other day, is that they can, when there's an issue with something that might have been damaged, they can see who was out of the classroom. And it is just really cutting down a lot of things. They're all really raving about the benefit to this program.
Yes, ma'am. We have had very good positive feedback for the Smart Pass. The vape sensors, we are continuing to use the Halo Cloud vape sensors. What that is also an electronic platform that is able to monitor all of our pre-existing vape sensors that are in our secondary school restrooms. And this allows, kind of like with the Smart Pass, it allows our administration to see where, if there's a particular time that vape sensors are going off, if there's a specific bathroom or restroom that is a constant area that has vape alerts, then they can adjust their supervision plans from there. The Louisiana Center for Safe Schools, we received a grant for $745,000 through them. We chose to use those funds from the grant for the Armor One ballistic impact film that I've presented previously, and we wrapped up that project. It was in mid-December. We wrapped that project up where the schools received all of their secondary entrances, all the glass as well as the surrounding windows of those entrances received the ballistic impact resistant film. So now not only are our front entrances protected, now all of our secondary entrances are protected as well. Yes, sir. The electronic access program, we piloted and actually had a couple of different vendors come in and demonstrate their electronic access programs. We chose to move forward with a company called Genetech. And with this Genetech electronic access program, it allows us to be able to view instantaneously what doors are open, unsecure, or locked. And at this time, we are in the process of converting all of our existing electronic access doors over to the Genetech program, as well as at this point, Alamans Elementary was used as a pilot program that every door, every classroom door, office was installed with electronic access. So that gives us the ability to, we can, do away with hard keys for the most part for teachers, as well as we're able to either grant or deny access immediately. The great thing about this project, this system is it ties into some of our existing security features that we have. So it can integrate to our camera system that if somebody scans, it'll pull a video feed and we're able to see that. It also ties in with our existing Raptor emergency management platform. So if a school does go on a lockdown, this electronic access will electronically lock and disable the doors that intruder can't then move about the school freely and gain access into the classrooms. So some, we'll call them fun facts of the Raptor platform. Our visitor management platform, to date, we have signed in a lot over 22,000 visitors throughout all of our campuses, as well as there's been 172 possible matches for sex offenders. And there has been one match for a custom alert. A custom alert could be somebody that either came on campus and was disruptive, and the administration and the sheriff's office has then banned that person from coming on campus. We can put them into a system that it alerts administration that, hey, this person is trying to access campus, and they can take the actions, whether they need to escort that person around or if that person is just not allowed on campus.
From the time I get like a Rapture email, what is that? Is that just like a test?
Is it an alert email?
Yes.
So this is the alerting piece, for the Raptor emergency management platform. What that platform is it allows us to send out notifications as well as initiate emergencies at a specific site. And we used to have an app called Rave, the Rave panic button. So Raptor replaced Rave because of its robust system that it not only allows the initiation and notification of emergencies, but then it moves into the accountability piece where staff members are able to account for themselves as well as all of their students and provide an updated location of where they are during that emergency. And you can see on the images, I did change it, okay, yeah. So you can see on some of the images on the slide that this system is also tied into the 911 center. So during real emergencies, they will get a similar alert, and they can see on a map of where that emergency was initiated, and that helps with our responders in getting an idea of where they need to respond to. So if you look on the left side of the screen, that is what the image of what our staff members see on their phone of Raptor. They have the 4 emergencies that they can choose from, and a hold is what we used to call a soft lockdown. I'll give an example of if there is a law enforcement emergency in the area of a school that we don't want our students outside. It's not a full lockdown where they're going inside the classroom and hiding, but they're free to move about inside of the walls of the campus, but we just don't want them exterior of the building.
So when we get the alert, will it say that? It will say whole lockdown? 'Cause I don't remember seeing.
Yes, ma'am, it should.
Okay.
We're gonna have to.
I'm gonna go
look
back and
into
look.
it with
I mean, I
y'all
wasn't really
and kind of
paying
see exactly
attention.
what y'all are getting.
Yeah, because it was central office. Am I right? Yeah, yeah.
Very, very possible.
We had one the other day, last week, matter of fact, of an evacuation.
Yeah,
So
right,
what you
right
were-
after the risk management meeting.
Right to end your risk management meeting for you. But when you receive that email, if you're not on campus, it alerts you not to come to the campus. So it's a multi-layered system to make sure you're not coming into the danger. So Mr. Vanette will look into it to see what kind of alerts you receive. So if y'all are coming here, if y'all are going to another campus, make sure that you all get the alerts.
Thank you. I'll pay more attention when I'm seeing that, reading and making sure I see, what's the reason.
Yes, ma'am. And so you can see also all of the different connectivity things that Raptor integrates with, and that is all of our electronic access. It'll integrate with cameras, our display boards as well, so we're able to get the alerts out faster and quicker. Also, the wearable panic buttons, which is a lanyard-worn panic button that our staff are being issued, that they can alert a lockdown immediately, or they can request a teacher assist. We are in the process of issuing and training all of our staff members as we speak. Our March 11th, every 2 years we do a agency coordination drill training. This year we did it a little different. On March 11th, we held district-wide lockdown drills. After receiving feedback, we decided that we wanted to hold drills with our staff members at their school sites so they can practice what they would do in a real emergency at their site instead of pulling them all into one site. We do feel that is a great training opportunity for all of our agencies and everybody to work together. However, we wanted to focus on testing and getting our teachers more familiar with what they would do at their home site. So we had approximately 50 evaluators from multiple agencies and backgrounds, and they came in, and during the lockdown drills, they walked around and evaluated each of the campus's security and emergency response protocols, as well as we had a command center with our ITS team was set up in their command center, and they were able to monitor everything in Raptor because we want to make sure that all of our staff members are comfortable and familiar with using that app, so they were able to monitor that. During the lockdown drills, some staff members were given a scenario that they either were handed the scenario or it was slid under their door if they were already in their lockdown position. And it had multiple different scenarios that they could have been given. The example is that you hear gunshots in your hallway. And we want them to think about what they would do in that situation, as well as we wanted them to react on it. So we wanted them to document that in Raptor to let their other staff members know. And then at that point, they were able to scan a QR code, and then they could document what their response was, or if they had any questions about how to respond to something like that. We were able to collect all of the data, and all of that will be compiled into a report. And so at the conclusion of each drill at each site, let me back up a little bit. Our evaluation team met with each school administration, and they were able to discuss what the immediate findings were and what they observed, as well as the evaluators were able to submit summaries of their findings of what they saw and the scenario responses. We were able to compile all that data, and we're going to analyze it and provide each school with a summary as well as a district summary. As a Safe Schools Committee team, we will then meet and review all of the data and see if there's any of our response procedures that we need to review and revise from the data that we collected. So why do we practice this? Well, Friday, on March 13th, Ethel Scheffner experienced an evacuation due to a power surge. The evacuation was at 7:53 in the morning, and administration decided to evacuate the school due to the loss of power. They followed all of their steps that they had been practicing through Raptor. They initiated the emergency, and their staff began responding immediately. I will happily to report that 385 students, all 385 students were accounted for during this event, and 76 of the 81 staff members were accounted for, with the quickest time of a student or a staff member accounting for themselves or somebody was 26 seconds. We have identified those 5 staff members that did not account for themselves. Yes, that did not account for themselves, and some of them were either part-time workers that hadn't had the app downloaded on their phones yet, and one of them was our SRO at the school, that he was dealing with the emergency at the time, so he didn't account for himself, and we will be doing training as well with that. At a little after 9 a.m., the district made a decision to initiate an on-site reunification, and during the reunification, we're able to do that through the Raptor app as well. So district staff as well as school staff were assigned as checkers, runners, or reunifiers. During this reunification, the entire reunification lasted 5 hours and 48 minutes. However, that includes everything from even the students that stayed at school for the duration of the school day and went home on a bus or a car ride or went to before and after school care. So that is why the extent of that reunification lasted the 5 hours and 48 minutes. I will tell you that the average reunification from the time that a parent got on campus to the time that they were reunited with their student was 2 minutes and 48 seconds. So Raptor is able to compile all of this data for us that we can analyze and see in real time as well. Gotcha.
Thank you. Yep. You knew I was up here for some reason, right? I will give kudos to Dustin Cade, the technology team, and the school as well. All those folks that worked on that Raptor app. You know, all the heartache and lead up to that really was amazing to see in practice. These two here, I thought they were at Christmas. They were going around like, look at this, how cool. And as were the teachers. I had a few of them show me like, look, I got 2 kids in the bathroom. So like, I know where they are. I said, yeah, how amazing is that? Because if not, you'd be searching all over for them. You know they're in the bathroom. When they come back, they can send them to the runner. So forth and so on. So I was able to see it in action. And these guys, and as well as the tech team, put in a lot of work to get us to that point. So it was good to have an emergency that was an emergency, but not, to the level where we could have a critical issue. So it was good to test out kick the tires, if you will. So appreciate their efforts in that. So just a quick recap, you see the slide before you. Historically, at the end of this presentation, I come up and, present to you a request for things like long-range major maintenance, principals capital improvements, and safe schools capital improvements. It's those budgetary requests, kind of all the spreadsheets we bring each year. Well, obviously, we're taking a bit of a fiscally conservative approach, which is prudent. So for the most part, those items have been deferred. But I do want to let you know, it's not like we just put it on a shelf and forgot about it. Like in regards to long-range major maintenance, it's like our 5-year capital outlay, which we were able to do is mostly pretty much just shift the continuum and defer those items a year, but we still take a hard look at them. Like, for example, at central office, the roof here is aging, and it's telling us it's almost time to replace, but we were able to put a single-ply coating on top of it for a fraction of the cost of a new roof, but it'll extend our life maybe up to like 10 years. So, we're looking at those measures to where, one, is it absolutely necessary? Well, then bring it forward. 2, can we defer it completely? Or 3, is there another alternative to address the issue in the short term? So just want to let you know, we're not forgetting about these things. It's just more of a deference. The principal's capital request, we did solicit it, as we always do. We've taken in the list. We're compiling them. We're getting pricing on the items on there because funding may become available during the year, or we may be able to absorb some of this in our normal operating budget. So if we see something critical on there, we still have funding to address. We're just not taking the list holistically or in totality as we normally would. So rest assured, we're still looking at. And in regards to the Safe Schools capital improvements, you've heard from the presentation, this was a banner year for us. Most of the items were minor. Very few were capital in nature, large capital. So we will be able to absorb those things like striping of parking lots, fixing fences, things of that nature through our general operating budget. So we're not going to compromise safety in any way. We're taking the PICS approach, from the regards of, people, instruction, compliance, safety. So we still have that at the forefront, rest assured of that. Couple other small pieces. Other plans related to capital outlay, fiscal year budgeting, 2022 bond issue, happy to report we're pretty much nearing completion on that. The only project that remains is the canopy replacement at Luling. As you may recall, we did the larger bid project to renovate wings B, C, and D at Luling. Well, that couldn't both take place during the summer because the canopy area was a critical conduit through that area. So that piece of the project was delayed or phased out to this summer. So with that being said, we plan to attack that this summer. It's not a bid job. It's a smaller dollar value amount. So we have plans to go out for proposals and to get that achieved this summer, and that will close out the 2022 bond issue. Long-range plan for physical education and athletic facilities. As you know, we were kind of already in the process on the elementary school and the middle school gym conversions. So those projects are underway. They're breaking ground. The driving pylons actually on the middle schools right now and staging for the elementary work. So we conveyed that to the principals. They know the process. They know our timelines there. We have those items budgeted in because they were already in progress. The good thing is we were in time to put a halt or a deference on some of the other projects, things from turf, which can be deferred, to additional parking lot at Hornville, lights, baseball, softball, tennis. So we do have all these things. We have the price, we have the A&E lined up, and in some cases we actually have plans. So we're ready to go. We're just preparing to be all systems go at, when the budget allows for it. So none of it's being forgotten. It's just being kind of put in a holding pattern. And just to point out that we're looking at interim budget right now for our fiscal year 27, and we're taking a hard line approach and a hard look at all those things. We do have a couple of major accounts like physical plant services, upkeep of buildings, equipments and grounds. These are very large operating general budget accounts. That's what I was referring to earlier. While we are reducing those from this year's level, we still feel that we have room within there to take care of these critical items that may show up from the principal's capital list, from emergencies, from the safe schools list. So all that's being accounted or factored in that regard as well. We're going to take that hard look at it. Once again, PICS, look at those things, protecting instruction, compliance, safety, and people, and then make decisions from there. We're really going to dive into the data, whether it be warranty data, work order data, obsolescence data, safe schools data. We're going to take all these things together and look at them to make decisions, which is best moving forward, in a bit of a leaner year. So with that being said, the only other thing I have to mention is that I'm going to do a facilities update at the board retreat, items from property update to use of facility fees and looking at possibly restructuring that to meet our modern needs and times. Request from AT&T for a cell tower, Atmos Energy with a request for Landry for a regulator yard, and also a Trailblazer update, and I'll give you a little sneak peek at that. We're nearing completion on that, and that installation is planned to be late April, early May. So more information will be coming about groundbreaking and ceremonies and things of that nature. So more to come at retreat, but just wanted to give you that facilities update and, you know, kind of not leave it hanging because we brought those requests from year to year with this Safe Schools presentation. We're just open for any questions that you may have now.
I have one. And Mr. Burnett stepped out. With that Raptor stuff, does power outages or Wi-Fi outages affect it?
So power does not. Wi-Fi has an effect, but sometimes you use your cellular data to do it. So it could work both ways. What we were able to do at Scheffner, Ms. Hegel was able to bring some hotspots over there so we can connect to where the parents would come in and sign in and to the reunifiers. So we always had that data going. We're going to enhance some of those MiFi packs, but we already have a Go box for if we have to do a bigger reunification to be able to accommodate all of that. Yeah, and I'll tell you, you know, Mr. Rome already said it, but just to give Mr. Burnett kudos to a job well done. This has been a night and day activity, and the working relationship that we have with Raptor, they were so impressed that they sent one of their VPs down to observe and sit in with us, and they've been on calls weekly back and forth to, you know, because we're kicking the tires and they're trying to get how can it work better from the school's end. So anything we recommend or say, hey, this would be nicer if we had a way to access a different roster or so on and so forth, they've been able to make it happen for us.
Any other questions on this item? All right, then we have Ms. Jenny Darash up here with the Summer Food Service Program, and Mr. Rogers as well.
I'd like to thank Mr. Rogers for being here tonight with us. We come every year at this time for our summer food service program. This is a program that's offered by the parish in partnership with the school system. The dates of the service this year will be May 29th through July 10th, and we'll be utilizing Hearst Middle School and R.K. Smith Middle School. We do provide transportation. They also reimburse us for the transportation, and a lot of times they're using our child nutrition techs over the summer, and they pay their salaries as well. So we come to you with this tonight to move forward hopefully on Wednesday, because this needs to go to the parish and at their council meeting to be able to approve the contract so we can get this ready for the end of May.
No cost to us.
No, sir.
Any other questions? All right, well, we are adjourned.
Move adjournment?
I guess I'll let you move.
Second.
Like we are. Finance.
Finance. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Adam, you want to come up?
Mr. Neighbors, Ms. Chair, if I could have Mr. Neighbors, Ms. Stewart, and Mr. Tomfrio also to come to the table. And the financial update that you see before you will lead then into 5B, the revised budget. I wanted to make sure that the board had a good understanding of where we have been since the initial incident occurred, or that we were made aware of in early January. We've updated the board along the way. We are now, I kind of consider this the first step to really making firm decisions going into next fiscal year relative to our cash flow, as well as options for the board to consider in terms of savings at that point in time. So today's update will start with our new CFO. Congratulations, Mr. Neighbors. this afternoon, of course, with our business manager, Ms. Johnny Stewart, who's worked diligently with her team the last month and a half, two months, a lot of work, as well as our executive staff and even principals relative to where can we save money for this current fiscal year in preparation of where we feel we may fall short next fiscal year, so that we can have a better understanding of what position our system is in terms of finances. So we'll start first with an overview by Mr. Neighbors, who's really worked with a lot of our executive staffs, including Ms. Hegel, where we had them fill out these budget saving sheets that I have referenced often, and looking very closely at each department as well as schools across the entire district to see where we can save funds. Mr. Rome just mentioned a few in his last presentation. Then that'll transition into an update from EisnerAmper. As you know, they are the firm that we contracted with to come in and do an internal audit, forensic piece, with phase one of that step to truly understand where our financial standing currently is. And then at the same time, it will be to understand all the funds that we manage and whether or not we were compliant with the expectations of those funds, as well as next steps on making recommendations throughout this entire process for internal controls within our business department and within the school system. At which that time, then we'll present additional policies and procedures to the board or modifications of, as I've updated the board along the way. So at this point in time, Mr. Chair, if I could turn it over to Mr. Neighbors, unless you have something to say.
Before Mr. Neighbors begin, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Neighbors aboard as the new CFO in his role. Mr. Neighbors comes on board at a very difficult time. There are many challenges that we face at this particular time, and I believe that he is up for the task, and we want to welcome him aboard. So with that, I'll ask you to begin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smith and committee and all the board members for that trust and the faith in terms of trying to lead the school board forward in this time of review. We'll just call it that. As Dr. Orling mentioned, my initial responsibility in this process was really taking a hard look at allocating and kind of discussing with various departments and schools where we could make changes, basically from where we were at that point of the year when we started this about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, where they were at fiscally, where the rest of their budget was planning to be, and then kind of having them address any sort of major projects, changes, large purchases, anything that they could kind of put their hands and heads around to kind of calculate exactly what they felt their budget would need to be for the remainder of this fiscal year. So with the help of Ms. Hegel in ITS, we were able to put together various budget trackers. There was a total of about 24 various department trackers based on executive role, and then kind of sublet out to other executives and various secretarial personnel. So across that 24 trackers, the PDF that you have in front of you is kind of like a high-level summary of their efforts, taking their best practices and kind of review and going from there. The first tab kind of gives you a breakdown of where the original interim budget was presented to you versus the revised budget that we will talk about in a few minutes, and kind of showing where those variances are going, outlying. And then from there, I wanted to show you some of the efforts and some of the successes we had in terms of where those changes were addressed. The negative numbers, anything in parentheses, is a give back, meaning that we reduced our expenditures or our planned expenditures. So those are, in so many words, positive things for the board. Anything that's a positive or without parentheses, obviously, is unfortunately an increase where, due to something that was unavoidable or things that had already occurred, those budgets had to be addressed or adjusted upward. So on this first tab, you can kind of see at a very high level, based on the fund structure, general fund, construction fund, capital projects, and then down into child nutrition, you can kind of see where some of the variances come in, the interim budget versus the revised. You can kind of see that the variances across the general fund was an increase of about $4.5 million. And you can see how that kind of breaks out across the spread of where those responsibilities and those changes could be allocated. The departmentals tried to make up about almost a savings about almost $1.8 million, but then they were offset by some other changes like departmental salary and benefits. And we'll get into a little bit about that when it comes to things like stipends, things that unfortunately they had already committed into and were paying into, that they kind of projected out for the rest of the year. So unfortunately, some of their stipends budgets had to be updated a little bit more to accurate or to actual so that we could stay ahead of that curve. Last but not least, in terms of, we also address school-based items, things that are on the school's budgets for principals review. Originally, our understanding was that we may be able to give a little bit back, but when I took a little bit harder look at some of the interim numbers, some of those interim numbers were actually moved between different categories. So unfortunately, some of those school numbers had to be adjusted upward for actually what was transpiring during the course of the year. Last but not least would be the effect on salaries and benefits. As Ms. Stewart went through some of her calculations, trying to understand truly where our positions would be at the end of the 12 months, we had to do some adjustments up for some things that were not truly captured in that original interim budget. So we wanted to make sure that we could kind of address those concerns from a salaries and benefits perspective. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when you get to the revised budget as well. Okay, but you can kind of see some of the breakdown in terms of where those changes happened. The second page gets into a little bit more detail, and if you really wanted to dig into that, I'm not going to go into every single line by line because it's, like I said, it's 24 individual trackers, but this gives you a good reference in terms of some of the efforts of our departmental heads and executives to really review and crunch their numbers, so to speak. Like I said earlier, the negatives are where we could basically give back or reduce our budgets, and then the positives are where those increases occurred. And you can kind of see where those budget tracker changes happened, and you can see some of the big ones sticking out, like ITS had a pretty good revision to the tune of almost $3 million as they tried to postpone or defer a lot of their projects or planned projects for this year. And you kind of see some up and down with maintenance or safety, and kind of you can kind of walk down the list of where those allocations happened, and then it also kind of showed you just geographically on the fund structure where those departmental changes actually hit those previous discussions about our funds. So like I said, at a very high level, without getting into the weeds a little bit too much, this kind of really gives you an understanding of who crunched and kind of could save or who could not save at this time.
Looking at page 1, you have a column all the way to the left, 25, 26.
Microphone, Mr. Ellis, thank you.
On page 1, this is not clear. It says expenditures only.
Yes, sir. This is just from the expense side. This is not the revenue side. We'll talk more about the revenue side in just a few minutes.
Okay, because that's where, I'll just wait, because that's where my question was going to come from.
Yes, sir. This was an exercise to see where we could, maybe in so many words, tighten the belt, close in the wallet a little bit in terms of figuring out where we could or could not make changes on the monies going out.
At this point, just looking at the expenditures, and the expenditures and the revenue should balance out. Am I correct?
We'll have to talk a little.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to talk a little bit more about that.
Looking at these numbers, wouldn't even be a need for a revised budget.
We'll have to get to more detail in just a second.
And that's going to be the next agenda item, Mr. Alexander.
I'm sorry?
We're going to discuss the entire revised budget next. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
This is just a high level, just in terms of the exercise of where we were able to review things. We will get into more detail in just a minute when we get through the revised budget, including income.
And we can take this offline need be, but sales tax couldn't cut their budget at all?
Sales tax all the way down at the bottom, the 19,000.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not much, but I mean, just.
A lot of that is just mileage, travel, conferences, office supplies, various office and departmental related things.
Contracts?
That's not in that.
It's not in ours?
No, that's not in that line item.
So this document obviously doesn't tell the whole story of what every department, but the same task was presented to every department head and every leader that had an operating budget to reduce. So in this particular case, I don't recall exactly having that discussion with Mr. Johnson, but we expected everyone to trim as much as we can on them. Ms. Stewart, if you want to add anything to that. Or.
Well, I mean, because.
Yep.
That number right there is not their total budget, it's the total change to their budget.
That's
so
correct.
They were unfortunately unable to reduce their amounts. It was a matter of other things and previously expended costs that they were unable to, in so many words, get away from. Personally, as I went through my own, you can actually see my internal audit went up by about $5,500, and that was just due to a matter of expenses and timing.
Yeah.
There was a check that was cut towards right at the end of our budget review process that I had accounted for, but the budget wasn't updated until we went through our process.
Gotcha. All right.
And I believe now Mr. Tom will provide an update from Eisner Amper before we get to the next agenda item.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Tom Frio from Eisner Amper. And so as Dr. Ortling mentioned, we've completed phase one of our procedures, which was around validating and reviewing the general ledger and cash balances just at 12/31/2025. And we issued our report, issued our report on March 12th to Ms. Gray. So, so that part is complete. We're currently working through the fund transfers, looking at journal entries and general ledger transactions across funds to review for compliance or any other issues that may surface. And then we're also looking at a kind of a cash flow projection. And so both of those are in process right now, and will be, reports will be issued outlining procedures, findings, and then any recommendations similar to the cash position report we issued. And so those will come in the near future.
And if you recall, I did provide a summary of that during one of the recent financial updates. That was a report from Eisner up to that point. But of course, it was important for them to be able to validate where our position was in order for us to have the revised budget for you prepared tonight.
That's the report that, okay.
It was, I think, Financial Update 11 or something, 12, where I had summarized what Eisner Amper had provided relative to the sales tax, ad valorem, that whole piece. Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, that's it for that agenda item.
All right, on behalf of the board, I want to express our sincere thanks and appreciation to Ms. Johnny Stewart for the work that you did during the interim here. You served the board in a outstanding manner, and we certainly appreciate all of what you did during that time to keep the board abreast of what the financial conditions of the district were, and to manage and operate the office in a very effective manner. So we want to express our sincere thanks and appreciation to you for the work that you did.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And the work you did getting those SOPs.
And Mr. Chair, can we go on to the revised budget? Yes, sir.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
All right, as you can see in the attachment for this next item is our 25-26 revised budget. As Mr. Smith mentioned, this was created through the combined efforts of reviewing a lot of those expenditures that we just mentioned in some of the high-level overview, but also working through Ms. Stewart to kind of work through some of the salaries and benefits changes, as well as some of the revenue revisions and some of the modeling, just because some of the hands-on and kind of what she was seeing in the daily operations, especially in the last 2 months or so, she was able to lead a critical hand to make sure some of those estimates were input and maintained in this updated revised budget. So I'm going to kind of walk through a few of the pages. I'm trying not to go through every single page, just kind of keep it as high level as I can, just so for the purposes of time. So feel free to stop me if there's any questions.
And just a reminder as well, this was validated by Eisner Amper. So I just want you to know that everything was validated against statements from what the business office did to provide the information relative to this budget.
As we kind of get through some of it, the opening letter is the budget message, where we kind of review the changes from the interim to the revised budget at a very high level. As you can kind of walk through, you can kind of see, at least when we start about talking about the general fund, you can see that the revenues for the general fund, and I think Mr. Alexander, you had a point about this a minute ago, you can kind of see that unfortunately due to the changes in ad valorem collections, the primary change in general fund actually decreased by a total of about $4.3 million in terms of our estimations for the rest of this year. That is significant, mainly because of the ad valorem change of about $3.9 million. and also a small increase of state revenue, about 515,000, but then that was also offset by an additional decrease in various other state and local revenues of about another 868. So the combination of those three shows that the overall decrease in the general fund was about $4.3 million. Going a little bit further, we can talk a little bit more about the general fund expenditures. So when we started looking at the revised budget for the expenditures, in connection with that budget tracker process, we really wanted to go through and identify where those changes happen and present that, like I said, at a high level in this message. When you start looking into the nitty-gritty details in some of the pages, you can actually see that the expenditures and transfers to other funds total increase for general fund by about 18.1 million. By and large, most of that, it was driven primarily by two things. Personnel costs as well as other various M&S. A lot of the nitty-gritty, the movements, was a total of about 4.6 when you put all the pieces together. But the bigger issue, or the bigger transfer change, was in those transfers, where the general fund had to continue to fund other funds, and the original estimation of about 13.7 was significantly increased to about $27.3 million. So that additional outlay was not originally in that interim budget, and we had to increase that transfer of support to the construction and capital projects funds to make sure that they weren't significantly or too far down in the negative category at the end of the financial year. So you can kind of see that in the budget message letter, and that moves into the top. And the change, and we talked about a little bit why those transfers happened, talks about some of the major projects that were continuing during the course of this fiscal year, as well as some of those big changes that were upcoming. The things like the middle school gyms and the elementary gyms that were talked about in terms of like some of that ground, hitting the ground running, like the architect fees and things that were already starting to be incurred, and our plans for those before the end of this fiscal year. Obviously, as Mr. Rome has mentioned, those larger projects, they may not all hit in this fiscal year, and those will be spread out. But I did want to at least bring to the attention that as we start moving forward and the budget process happens for the 26-7 year, we need to make sure that we're capturing those appropriately. Okay, moving a little bit in more to in terms of the general fund surplus. As you can see, when we start getting to some of the schedules, the general fund deficit the projected for this year looks to be about $47 million, which took our revised or our ending fund balance, our fund balance, so to speak, down from $73 million to about $26 million. That is a significant hit.
What does that legally and in your opinion need to stay? When everything's back to normal and running,
Yes,
what's
sir.
that number need to be? Yeah.
Right now, in our best practices guidelines and in policies that are going to be presented in terms of just keeping you guys updated, best practices as required by the Governmental Finance Officers of America is actually basically 17% of your general fund expenditures. And right now, our general fund expenditures total a little more than $235 million. Our estimation of where that should be is closer to between $35 to $40 million. So we are off of that threshold by about $10 to $15 million at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
And so that, based on other considerations, will have to be addressed via additional revenue cuts and expenditures, et cetera, to move it back forward.
17% of general
Fund expenditures.
Fund expenditures.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Basically 2 months worth of operating expenditures. 2 months over 12 is basically 17%.
So let me ask you this. I
Sure.
might have talked with you offline about this at some point. Is that when you consider the fact that we're on a fiscal year, July 1st to June, but then you got a parish that's on a calendar year, and I'm using a parish as an example, not to pick on, but just let's call another entity, and that they get the majority of their, from a cash flow perspective. So you just said 2 months of expenditures. Well, part of the thing that in my mind that I've seen, especially through this process, is that while you have, let's just say you have that 17% on June 30th, that will not get you through the end of the year. I mean, even with the sales tax deposits is what I'm getting at. So even a $40 million general fund, when you compare two entities, and not trying to compare, but just two entities where they're getting their major deposits around the same time, the biggest ones, a $40 million general fund on June 30th is not the same as a $40 million general fund on December 31st. It's just not, it's not equivalent in my eyes. So to Mr. Cody's question, just piggyback on what he just asked, shouldn't it be higher than that, I guess, is because what I'm getting at is a 17%. If it's 2 months worth of expenditures, that doesn't get you through the 6 months of the year.
Yes, that is the minimum best practices in terms of
Minimum.
that should be the lowest case or threshold that you should be looking to not try to go below. And that's why there are going to be some additional decisions and some sources looked at in the near future.
And if you also, if you recall originally, from a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had estimated our general fund balance to be around 60 to 70 million. That was the original emphasis to do.
And as you can see from the trends and spending, that target was off. Okay, going a little bit further in terms of just discussing the other funds, the budgets that you can see also include some discussion of the special revenue, the debt service, capital projects, and then the lunch funds. You can see that there was also an additional decreases in all of those combined, when you take them together, of about 1.3 million. And it gets into a little bit more of the details here. Special revenue was actually up because of some increases in the IDEA and the ESSA funds. But then the lunch fund actually had a small increase as well, but that was offset by the decrease in debt service revenues of about 3.1 million. And again, that ties back into the ad valorem and the collections that were occurring to date. So when you kind of take the two ad valorem collections together, you can kind of see that we were down about almost $7 to $8 million in ad valorem collections in terms of budget to actual, or budget to revised budget. Okay, and then you can see a little bit more in the message about expenditures for those other funds. You can see an increase in those expenditures of about 16.1 million. The largest obviously would be the matching IDEA and ESSA funds that I mentioned. As those revenues go up, the expenditures are also allowed to go up as well, just because it's a matter of timing. Those are reimbursement basis. But the biggest change was obviously in the capital projects funds because of those large construction projects that were historically told that would be assisted by the general fund. That's that transfer number that we saw move over. That additional 13.6 million was because of the very significant increase in those capital project expenditures over the course of, or projected to be finishing through the end of this fiscal year.
Neighbors, I had a computer glitch.
Okay.
And what page are you on?
Right now, this is page II. Oh,
okay.
It's up on the screen.
I could have looked up there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay. Before I get into a little bit more of the details, any questions about the message? All right. All right. Again, at a high level, this is kind of going through some of the historical presentation that you've seen in various interim and revised budgets. This kind of breaks it down into more detail at a summary level. These first 2 pages breaks it down by fund, by source of revenue, by type of expenditure, by major categorization, instructional, support services, et cetera. And you can kind of see I was able to do some totaling and put some totals on the second line in terms of putting all those pieces together. What was our total revenues and what were our total expenditures for the year? So if you move on to the end of, and on page 1, you can see that that fund balance is there of about 25.5 million in the general fund. When you put all the funds together, that fund balance ends up being close to 33.9 million. But again, all those structures and those metrics that you were talking about, Mr. Cody, are all based on the general fund revenues, because all those specials and capitals, those are usually designated and reserved for other things. General is usually your catch-all. Okay, but those next 2 pages, like I said, are kind of a high-level summary in terms of review of where those revenues and expenditures fell out or fell in. Okay. The few pages goes into more detail about the actual funds themselves, general fund, where it does a comparison revised against interim. And that's where you get into a lot of the nitty-gritty detail of what line items were affected. I can go into specifics, we can keep it high level. This is kind of to the pleasure of the board in terms of how much detail y'all like at this time.
Bottom line for me.
What's that?
Bottom lines.
Bottom lines?
And I'm same here, but I just said more. What on page 4?
Okay.
If you know, I don't expect you to know. Why did we lose 878,000 in federal resources? If you don't know, get up. I mean,
federal grants. Page 4.
Yes, ma'am. Under revenues, Roman numeral 3.
I think he included from historical, we got like reimbursements for FEMA and things of that nature in the previous fiscal year, so I think he kind of put that in his projections. I'm not seeing that this year, so that's why I just went ahead and took it out. And then I think it was also some Medicaid reimbursements. We got multiple years reimbursed in the previous year, so I didn't want to bake that.
So it was lagging stuff the previous year. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that makes
that we
sense.
got,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Last year's collections were a little bit higher than expected, so when he started basing his numbers, he kind of left that number a little bit higher than expected.
Got it.
And so we had to, based on the actual collections,
Yeah.
that number needed to come
Makes
back
sense.
down.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. You have two columns, FY '26 revised budget and FY '26 interim budget. The FY '26 revised budget, that was the one that we didn't.
That's what you're looking at right now. That's what you're looking at right now, Mr.
Okay,
Alexander.
so this is the revised from the beginning of the 25-year budget.
25, 26.
Yeah.
So you saw the interim budget, which was proposed and approved back in July. This is taking those numbers, updating them for actuals, updating them for those discussions, and kind of
Shouldn't
projecting
that
out.
be FY '25 revised budget?
We call it 25, 26. We go by the end of the year.
Calendar, it's, they
Throw me
still
off
call it.
with two saying FY '26.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know what it is now, but that's not what I was expecting to see FY '26 revised. I was expecting to see FY '25 revised.
For business office purposes,
25,
we tend to work
26.
off the end of the year just because that's, the audit financial statements are referred to that in that nature.
So currently, we're working on the interim FY '27 budget. That's what we're working on currently.
26, 27.
That will be the next steps.
It's referred to as FY '27, yes, sir.
So just to, again, keep it high level, pages 4, 5, and 6 really get into a little bit more nitty-gritty in terms of the detailed general fund budgets. It goes into some specifics about where those specific revenues are coming from, as well as the specifics of those types of expenditures that we're incurring. Like I said, across the instructional services, such as regular, special ed, other instructional, and then getting into the support services as well. Once you get past pages 4, 5, and 6, it really starts working into the details on a program or function basis. That's where you really get into the understanding of salary costs, benefit costs, where those changes came from. When you kind of marry this information against some of that budget tracker or kind of that previous presentation, this is where you can see some of those changes coming across. General instruction, like I said, is mainly all the teachers and all the primary core business. And you can kind of see that equipment line item. If you go to page 8, like I said, just pointing out just one specific example, equipment, 1F on page 8. You can see that it went from a budget of estimated of about $7 million to a budget of about $4 million. That was Ms. Hagel's revision that she proposed in the budget tracker. You can see that we took those proposals and those estimations and brought them into the revised budget. So you can see some of the manifestation of all their hard work put into reality. Without going into, like I said, every single fund and line item, I'll kind of leave it to the discretion of the board as to questions or specific pages.
So summarize, if you can. Looks like the general fund budget was off by
22 million.
22 million, or just over that. What, do we have one in here? I thought I saw one that was combined all, but maybe I was.
Pages 1 and 2 kind of put all the pieces together in terms of the various funds. But and going
Like just the
forward,
total number, how far we're off?
how far off in terms of budget?
It's 11. I mean, like this.
Hang on one second. Total, how far off in terms of everything considered, interim compared to revised, we're off about $26.3 million for all funds.
That's more than that.
When you put all the pieces on the subschedules that you see, it's about 26.3.
I guess, because I saw some other ones, 2 point, okay.
And there will be some changes to some of this presentation going forward so that some of this looks a little bit more comparative, so that we have this a little bit more easier read and followed.
And, you know,
Get it from
go back.
myself, I just didn't put it in the book.
Go back to, I think, Mr. Gregson's point, when you look at the end of our fiscal year, right, going into next fiscal year, July, you end with a general fund balance of $25 million. It costs much more to operate 6 months than $25 million. So those are some of the, I mean, obviously we're working now, as Mr. Tom mentioned, and Ms. Stewart in her office, and now Mr. Neighbors included, will now start, we are working on FY '27 budget to understand what we can operate on minimally by protecting those picks. to determine what our cash flow is with with safely projecting forward, not, very conservatively, so that we can see when we may have to make decisions, right? So that's why it's very important for us to have the interim budget to present to the board in some form or fashion in April and May, at last May, so that if we do need to, bring to the board other recommendations, we can do so then.
That is the hope. Any other questions or comments before?
I just want to question what Superintendent said. He said $25 million is not enough for 6 months. That's what you said. But
Correct.
we have 3 months left in this.
For this year, yes,
For
sir.
this-
I'm just saying, at the start of next fiscal year, right, with the general fund balance is approximately 25 million. Now, of course, you're not taking it, well, we're estimating, like, now they're using estimations for sales tax and those kind of things. Relatively speaking, you don't know for sure if it's going to come in below that or above that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's a safe estimation of where we will be. And on a month-to-month basis.
At the end of June, this forecast is for the 25 million is what you're saying we're going to have at June 30th?
Projected.
That's our
Projected.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That won't get us.
Through
25
December.
Will not get us through the 25 will not get us through December 31st is what I was
I was thinking if it was for March 31st, it wasn't going to get us to June 30th.
No, sir.
Let alone December.
Well, possibly, yeah.
And I'll say this, as we're working now on the interim budget, as I've shared previously, we have already changed many of our processes. It's much more involved by executive staff, by the business office. Ms. Stewart and her team have done a phenomenal job from a customer service standpoint. We are going back or, incorporating more of a strict procurement process in terms of making requests for expenditures and related expenditures by department. So we're already implementing many internal controls we feel will be necessary. However, we want to make sure that EisnerAmper has the opportunity to finish, complete. We also plan to bring Lean Frog in as well to make sure that our policies are aligned to those things. But obviously, the most important next step for us, as I mentioned before, is interim budget, determine what our potential cash flow is at the beginning of next fiscal year and how far that'll last before we understand where the true gap may be, come obviously to you all for additional options. In the meantime, aside from just working on the interim budget, the HR department, curriculum instruction, capital improvement, we are still identifying additional options for the board to consider depending on how far that gap is.
So just to clarify, do we think would you say 26-ish approximately?
In terms of the change from.
Yeah, how
interim to
far
now?
off the difference?
It was about 26 million.
So do we think, again, projected, not.
Projected.
Do we think that's it, or is it, we think it's possible? There's still, I know he's still got some work to do, but I thought it was more cash flow.
Understand that cash flow could be, last year's, the expenditures. Now, a lot of that was capital projects and those kind of things, but it was between $20 and $25 million a month. That's how fast we were.
Burn rate, yeah.
Correct. So is it manageable to get it below that? Yes. That's what we're working on. That's why, Mr. Rome mentioned delaying projects, Ms. Eagle, those things that we can, we will. It would have been more fortunate if we would have been able to delay some of those other capital projects. Can't go back in time and change that. However, once we're able to really estimate what our budget is, I also want to mention that Mr. Rome and his team is already meeting with Ms. Stewart and her team relative to planning out those projects, right, the future projects, so that we can accurately or more accurately project from a month-to-month basis what our cash flow will be. So really, we've got to continue to work on our interim to make that determination on how far short we're going to be potentially next fiscal year.
Just for the purposes of illustration, the interim budget proposed and accepted last year for the capital projects funds was about $25 million in expenditures. Our proposed revised budget is about $41 million. That's the significant change in terms of the operations and the revisions that needed to be made to make sure that we are keeping that fund stable.
So long story short, it basically, these capital projects, no other pay rate, just similar to what EisnerAmper had presented in our last financial update that I'll pass on to you, that were not appropriately budgeted for in this year's budget. They were not. And add on top of that, ad valorem coming in lower than expected and lower than what was originally projected. And that is not supposed to change going into next year as well, in talking to our assessor. So we have to budget from a very conservative standpoint, but all these factors kind of contribute to those things.
He's right, it's not gonna change, because even with some of the projects, even with the recent announcement, you're talking about, and I'm ballparking here, even when it starts, when keyword, approximately 2 years, and that's sales tax throughout that period, and then assuming, I don't know if they are planning on applying for an ITAP if approved, et cetera, then it, it's a lagging indicator.
Other questions from the board?
All right, Mr. Chair, that's it for the revised budget. Do we want to, you got?
Question, it's in the revenues. You have the interest on investment of $3.6 million, and it was unchanged from the interim budget to the revised budget. Has any of that principal been reduced during all of this actions with our investments?
Just for sure, which page are you looking at?
It's in the revenues. It's 13 or 40, the big, it looks like on page 6. Yeah.
Thank you.
Under revenues from local sources, number 5, and interest on investments. Those numbers were unchanged. So my question is, that's investments we have with some financial institution? No?
Yeah, it's a combination of meter and lamp. In all honesty, I am thinking that it's coming in a little lower than that.
Okay.
Just because we don't have as much cash on hand.
But didn't we have some investments at one time that we had?
Right, and because we don't have that on hand anymore, we won't be getting the
That was
interest
the money that
income
was,
on that.
that principal was
Yeah.
used to pay for the securities, which was used to transfer over to our general fund balance to operate, which is what happened in December.
Yeah, keyword was did, Mr. Oakland. We did have some.
Mr. Chair, the next agenda item is resolution on oversight authorization for school board bank accounts. And Mr. Neighbor, just for the pleasure of the board, this is a resolution that is required in order for the new CFO to take over some authority relative to bank accounts. Also want to remind the board that we have put in additional controls relative to transfers of money from those accounts, even though it's not referenced yet in policy. We already have that in place currently.
Can I add that I upon my own personal research, which is not expert research, just a disclaimer, there should be, according to LAMP, there should be a resolution with that as well. And they actually provided a sample on their website.
Say that again,
The resolution's attached on the item.
Ray, can you repeat
It's
that?
attached.
So,
The resolution is attached on the agenda item.
does this include the LAMP account?
All accounts.
Okay.
And this once signed and authorized and official on Wednesday night, this will be forwarded to all of our financial institutions, LAMP, meter, capital, like all of our banking
This
arrangements.
is only going to require one signature.
Oh, no, sir. This just updates the fact that I have the authority to make
He's
various
not-
changes.
yeah.
I'm not the signature, I just have the authority to assist and
Because he's
request and make those changes. The various other levels of authorization that are already in place that we have been making more robust would still be in effect. This is just kind of like a higher level, executive level.
Okay, I was just thinking this was like operating account, not, I thought it was limited. Okay,
This
I
is
got you.
everything.
Got it.
Mr. Smith, on Wednesday, would you be okay reading, Mr. Smith, on Wednesday, would you be okay reading that resolution in the business portion of the meeting?
Yes. we can
Okay.
read it. But how is this different from what we had in place?
This is just updating This is just updating the person in the position. This is just, when the position changes, it's a matter of making sure that the new person in that responsibility, because the superintendent does that delegation to the chief financial officer.
Correct,
This
but
is
the
just
intent,
updating it.
There are, Mr. Smith, if I could just add, we have put in with meter and lamp that I have to approve those things, but because we will eventually change the policy and procedure, but we wanted Eisner Amper to finish their review of everything to give us those recommendations. So we have those controls in place. It's just not referenced in policy yet. We plan to bring that to the board next month, once Eisner Amper is able to give us their final recommendations.
In the near future, yes, sir.
then what's the need for this if we're already doing it?
Right now, Ms. Stewart is operating in that
Change it to
capacity.
give
Yes, sir.
him as the,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right, okay, all right.
Not, the position's not changing, it's me personally being.
Yeah, I
in that
understand.
position.
I got it.
Thank you, Mrs.
I just want to make sure that we're not continuing on the same path that got us where we are now. Okay.
Still will be, as Dr. Orling said, the additional robust authorization level and transactional level reviews that happen on a more procedure and policy-based level. This is just a high-level executive level.
What are we now with the letter we informed the legislative auditors on back in January?
So they are waiting for us in Eisner Amper to finish. Once all the internal audit is complete, then Ms. Gray will formalize a letter to send to the legislative auditor's office as well as the district attorney's office.
Still at
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this? If not, then we'll go to accounts payable. I'll entertain a motion to, well, not a motion, not here, but we'll move this to the board table.
I just had one question. I probably should have asked it 3 years ago. Mr. Suffren, you always ask that it be said, please reference budgeted versus, could you explain why we want to do that and how I can see it? When we always do the accounts payable.
Yeah, it's not referenced, it's not attached now, but in the past, we've had that report presented to give you an idea of how we're comparing
what was budgeted.
Actual to budgeted.
We will get back.
But under the circumstances, we're not including that report, at least for the present time.
Yeah, that will be changing going forward, Mr. Cody.
But to piggyback on that question, if it's not an executive or whatever the assembly is called, do you have to reference it if it's public? If the document is public, do you have to reference it?
You mean the accounts?
No, so the budget to actual, it's always been under executive content. If it was public, do you have to reference it? There's your answer. You don't, if you make it
No.
public, you don't have to say it.
It was just, more or less, it was more of a courtesy. The CFO prepared it.
Got it.
Primarily for the board's information, you know, so as a courtesy, I think it was referred to, you know, typically by the chair of the finance committee.
And the hope of as we go forward is to provide some additional transparent information to the board in terms of needs of budget to actual, cash position. Those things are already in process.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
And I second.
We stand adjourned.
The legislative meeting is now being called to order. I would like to ask Ms. Regina McMillan to come to the table. Ms. Regina McMillan is going to give us an update on currently of the bills that we are intensely looking at and just keeping us abreast.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Our lobbyist, Mr. Lenny Kapowski, is going to be joining us as well virtually because it was a late day at the Senate. In fact, while y'all were in here, I was on my computer looking at the bills as they were passing and clearing. So while we wait for Mr. Kapowski to get on with our virtual meeting, just to let you know, as of now, we have had 5. Well, thought audio cut out. We've had 5 bills that have passed the Senate and moved on to the House that we have been monitoring. Of those 5, 3 we are in favor of, and the other 2 we are neutral, so we're making really positive ground there. The ones that have passed that we are in support of is Senate Bill 98, which adds school resource officers and security guards to the definition of what an educator is when it comes in regards to prohibited contact with students. Senate Bill 239 deals with burden of proof for recovery and tort claims of mental anguish and emotional distress. And then we've got Senate Bill 303, which allows us to go through technology procurement during a cooperative agreement, makes that eligible now, whereas before it wasn't. We've also had some positive movement. I want to give some kudos to Ms. Darrenisha Gray for House Bill 410. She went to Baton Rouge and spoke with the bill's author. This bill was prohibiting a device to be used to record or transcribe a conversation unless all parties involved are informed and agree to it ahead of time. We did have some different concerns with the bill, especially when it came in time with investigations and with recording cameras, with our security cameras. So Ms. Gray spoke with the author of the bill. It has been amended to address our concerns. So whereas before we were against that specific bill, now we're neutral with that bill. Let's see, it looks like Kelsey's still getting Mr. Kapowski on the line. Does anyone have any questions before Mr. Kapowski joins us? He can hear us? Okay, he says he's on it. I'm gonna text this. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and call him.
In all, as Ms. Regina is contacting them, we meet every Friday with the chair and members of of our staff. We also review the bills every week with executive staff to be able to provide comments. We also work very closely with LASA, which is the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents and Associates, so that we can coordinate our efforts. So from LASA to LSBA to us, we really have a strong presence, and we're much more proactive this year than probably we've ever been, that I'm very proud of. And, we have executive members that are actually providing recommendations to amendments and to bills, as well as members going to the Capitol specifically for either to speak against and or for. So, and Lenny's doing a very good job as well.
I'm here, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kapowski. We can hear you.
Okay, look, I should have my 16-year-old here, because every time I get on one of these calls, I'm here. I'm glad y'all can hear me. But look, I know y'all have been at these meetings late, and I apologize for not being there. It's just they did, the Senate didn't go until late, and it is what it is. But staff and I wanted to personally thank Darrenisha and Regina and especially Ken for all the help that they have been providing this government relations team. Darrenisha joined me at the Capitol last week. We met with a few authors of some bills that we have some concern about. As always, did a wonderful job. Thank you for coming with me. Secondly, I guess you have to understand when we go through these bills, or you get reports, or you get a list of everything that we're watching and facing. A lot of times these bills seem to come, or these legislative bills seem to come out of left field, and things screening, compensation, insurance, a number of these come from, a lot of times they pick them up on these national think tanks, okay? Or it's something that they heard from a legislator at a convention at another, in another state. And they said, well, let's do that here in Louisiana, even though we may not have those same issues or culture or problems or what have you that you're having in other places. We don't always necessarily have them here. A few bills, and I'm assuming, Regina, that everybody has access to a list of what we're tracking or what we're taking positions on, either for, against, or neutral. But this session, you have a lot of recording, a lot of video related bills coming, trying to view cameras and voice recordings that maybe the intent from the author wasn't necessarily to affect schools. It falls on all sorts of education. The AI bills, while you understand where they're going, in practicality, in the classroom or on campus, become very, very hard and difficult to follow and adhere to if they were to become law. So we've been bringing those issues up to legislators, especially in those two spaces that have filed bills, as to the reality of, if that were to become law, how that would affect the classroom. One bill that we're following, I don't believe has been scheduled yet, is Representative Newell in New Orleans, a strong fan of public education. Ken, if you'll remember, this is the one about the school battery, where if there's a battery that takes place, the student has to be moved to another school. Well, I'll give another example yet. While all these things may be understandable of what they're trying to get to, but when you get to the reality, sometimes these things are difficult. Screening bills, those are still out there. Numerous retirement bills and leave-related bills that are adding to additional leave time outside of what schools already prescribe. Those are one bill that Darnisha and I had the chance to discuss with a Shreveport senator last week. Maybe, I could keep listing them, but I'd like to take any questions or any concerns or that y'all may have. Every year I work with y'all, I learn more and more and more about K through 12 education, and this just seems to be another continuation of that. I will say the governor is seeking an additional $50-ish million for the Gator program. That has not been received very well in the Senate. I have a meeting Wednesday morning with the Senate president on a host of issues, and I will bring this one up just to get where they are right now. But so far, working well with the coalition of school boards and the Superintendent's Association, that team is still intact, and we all are, as always, on the same page. So if you got any questions, please shoot.
I will say, Lenny, thank you for joining us tonight, but I had another superintendent reach out to me that happened to be at the Capitol last week, and he's like, man, y'all are like in every committee, because Lenny does go up and give our stance. So kudos to you, Ms. Kapowski, because they were saying that St. Charles is really represented in all of these hot topic items. So we appreciate your advocacy.
Oh yeah, and we try to stay very engaged. Obviously, St. Charles is home, so we have a very, very good relationship with our legislators, and I try to stay very attuned to letting them know where the board stands, and as always, they're incredibly receptive. We're very fortunate. Yeah.
Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you, Mr. Kapowski. I believe that's all for this evening.
All right, guys. I appreciate it, and thanks for letting me be on the team. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Board, while I have everybody here, I just want to let Dr. Scheckstein just provide a quick update instead of me sending you a text message about it. Are we off the air? Not yet. Hold on.
Any consent agenda items? None?
Consent agenda items on the agenda.